Do we get hands up from all the media outlets that Jacinda trusts more than the mongrel mob? Nobody. Oh, that's a bit worrying. Alrighty, so you guys are good. Good.
All good.
Bye.
Thanks,
All
mate.
good. Alrighty, well look, thank you everybody for coming along, and thank you especially to Matt McLaughlin from Danger for hosting us here today. Matt has seen up closer than most the deteriorating situation with law and order on our streets, such as Courtenay Place right outside. ACT's MPs have been travelling up and down the length and across the breadth of New Zealand over the last few weeks on our 45-stop Honest Conversations tour. One of the things that we've consistently heard on that tour and in previous engagement with the people of New Zealand is that the situation with law and order is deteriorating, and people feel the government is putting the rights of criminals and criminal organisations ahead of the safety of those who follow the law and pay the bills. ACT has responded to what we've heard from New Zealanders with a new policy today on law and order. Each of ACT's MPs will be outlining a different aspect, and then we'll take any questions that folks may have about why we believe this policy would make the streets and homes safer for New Zealanders rather than prioritising criminals. ACT believes that constantly empowering the gangs is the dangerous side of Jacinda's kindness, and we need to reprioritise the rights of law-abiding citizens ahead of criminals and criminal organisations. Our first spokesperson is Nicole McKee. Nicole McKee is our Justice spokesperson and would like to unveil a new policy taken from success in the UK and the United States for dealing to gangs. Nicole.
Thank you, David. New Zealand has seen an increase in gang membership. It's exploded under this Labour government since 2017. The community is telling us they don't like the soft on-crime approach. They've been telling us that they don't like the way that the government is coddling up to the gangs. ACT will introduce gang injunction orders. These have been proven in the UK and also in America for working to be able to dissuade people from wanting to appeal to the thug life. We actually want to make sure that New Zealand victims and our communities are front and centre. Now, the gang injunction orders will allow New Zealand Police to apply to the courts for an injunction on a member of the National Gangs list that they feel will commit crime in the future to stop them from doing so. This will be targeted on a risk-based approach, and it will only go after certain aspects of criminal behaviour for certain individuals. And we're proud to bring this policy to New Zealand.
Thank you, Nicole. And it may be true that Jacinda trusts the mongrel mob, ACT doesn't. Our next spokesperson is Chris Bailey. Chris, for 14 years, was a member of the New Zealand Police before becoming a teacher and now an ACT MP. Chris has been on the beat up and down New Zealand, including for some time as a police officer right outside here on Courtenay Place in Wellington. He is bringing his experience with fresh new ideas for empowering our police. Chris.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks. For too long, ACT wants to take the politics out of policing, and for too long the police numbers have been used as a political football by all parties, right from Bill English to Winston Peters and the current hollow promise of 1,800 cops while we stop recruiting. ACT will legislate to make sure police numbers increase with the population. And also I'm hearing a lot of feedback from ex-colleagues and victims about the processes of the IPCA, and we believe it's time for a review of the IPCA to make sure it's doing its job to ensure the best outcomes for both police and victims.
Thank you very much, Chris. Our next spokesperson is Karen Shure. Karen is ACT's welfare spokesperson and has a new idea for dealing with gang abuse, particularly of children. Her policy also sends a message from the New Zealand people through government that the gang lifestyle is not approved and not trusted by the people of New Zealand, and they will face sanctions for receiving benefits. Karen.
So ACT will introduce electronic income management. This is to make sure that the money they are given is going towards their children and caring for their children, and the money has been spent in the correct places. Because according to the Ministry of Social Development, there are a high number of neglect and abuse cases with gang members. So any gang member that is on the national gangs list will be part of this electronic income management. We need to protect our children, and we have a huge problem at the moment where our children are not being raised in the right way. So this is just another tool in our belt to help our children.
Thank you, Karen. And finally, Tony Severin is our corrections spokesperson. Tony has a series of ideas, one of which she'll emphasise today, for ensuring that prisons, rather than being universities for crime, become primary schools for basic literacy, numeracy and rehabilitation. Tony.
Thank you, David. ACT will abolish the target in prisons, because if you do the time, you do the crime. We believe that far too many people are getting released out of prisons too soon, and it's not keeping our streets safe. And there's rate of serious offences are occurring far too often here in New Zealand. But the thing that I'm most proud of is my members' bill, which says if you don't do rehabilitation, you don't get parole. We want to make it an incentive for people to do educational programs and rehabilitation so that they can be part of society on release. We understand that a lot of New Zealanders in prisons do not have the basic skills to be able to get a job. A lot of them don't even have a driver's licence. So how can you open a bank account or even apply for jobs if you've got no form of ID? So we're a strong believer that we need to make sure they have those tools. And those that may already have those tools, let's see if we can get them into higher education, maybe trades, so that they then can be part of the society, because we do need people in trades. So if we can get them to do their rehabilitation programs, then they can be part of society.
Thank you very much, Tony. ACT's policy for corrections would instil a culture of personal improvement in our prisons rather than people doing their time and returning to business as usual. We also have a series of questions raised at the end of our document surrounding the rules for sentencing and whether we need to extend our police to population ratio policy to a prison guard to prisoner policy, because we've seen a lot of difficulty with prison guards having trouble controlling prisoners in prison. With that, I'd like to open up to any questions or clarifications people may have about our policy document. Happy to take any questions.